Hi, my wonderful students. I know you've been dying to learn about properties of midsegments and triangles. So guess what? Your whole life, you've been waiting for this moment. And it has come. So get excited. So we're going to learn about how midsegments and triangles have special relationships to the sides of the triangles. Now, before I even tell you what a midsegment in a triangle is, I want to know what you all think it is based on the phrase triangle mid-segment. So what do you guys think a triangle mid-segment is? Holy hot dog, you guys are so smart. A triangle midsegment is a midsegment of a triangle that joins, basically a midsegment joins two midpoints on the side of a triangle. Okay, so if you have a midpoint, a midsegment will join one midpoint to the other. Okay, which I know these are midpoints because they split the side in half to create these two congruent sides. So my three midsegments are D to the F, E to the F, and D to the E. So these three form my midsegments. Awesome. So every triangle has three midsegments, and they form this lovely midsegment triangle, which is triangle D, E, F. Okay, so all triangles have three midsegments that make this wonderful triangle. So that's pretty cool. Bet you guys didn't know that. Okay, so now we're going to keep going. I know that you guys want to know where you can actually find a midsegment in your life because midsegments are very important to your life. So this is where you will see them in the world. Okay, which if you've ever gone to the mountains of North Carolina, or probably the mountains in general, you'll see these lovely A-frame houses, which are pretty cool. I've never been in one, but I've always secretly wanted to because they're kind of neat looking, and I love triangles. So I've kind of always wanted to go into a triangle house. But anyways, these houses were called A-frames, and they're actually, the structure of the house is built by a midsegment. So like if you look here, like this is the midpoint of the side of the triangle and creates two congruent sides. And this side also is the midpoint, which creates two congruent sides, or two congruent pieces of the side. Okay, and then this lovely part of the house joins together the midpoints, which means we have a midsegment. So midsegments actually help with the structure of an A-frame house, which is really cool. And now I know you guys all want to stay in an A-frame house because, I mean, doesn't that look like the coolest place ever to stay? And when you go there, you could talk about midsegments to all your besties, which I know you're dying to do. Okay, another place where midsegments come into play into real life is when you're trying to approximate distances that are hard to measure. Like if you see here, this kind of looks like a volcano of some sort, or it could be a sinkhole. I'm not really sure what it is, but let's just say it's either a sinkhole or a volcano. Which those are kind of hard to measure because first of all, I wouldn't want to walk across a volcano because then you'd fall to your death in the lava. And that's where the demon cats are. So not only would you burn to death, you'd also be eaten alive by a demon cat. So I wouldn't want to measure the length of that volcano, or if it's a sinkhole, you're going to sink in. So you don't really want to measure these things. So actually, if you have a midsegment in a triangle, the side in the triangle that's parallel to the midsegment actually has a neat relationship between the midsegment and the side of the triangle, which you will find out in a moment. But you can do something special to the length of the midsegment to get this side of the triangle. So like if you kind of make your own triangle and use a midsegment, you can predict the length of things that are hard to measure, like a volcano or a sinkhole, which I wouldn't really want to measure either of those. So a midsegment might save me if I ever wanted to measure a volcano or a sinkhole, which maybe one day I will. So I'm glad I know about this, and I'm sure you guys are too, right? Okay, which I will go back to this example after we explain the relationship between the midsegment and the side of the triangle, so you guys can actually predict the length of this volcano or sinkhole, whichever it is. It kind of looks like both. Maybe it's a volcano in a sinkhole. That would be cool, right? That would be really cool. But anyway, so let's talk about the triangle midsegment theorem, or the way I like to say it, the triangle midsegment theorem. Okay, so the triangle midsegment theorem says a midsegment of a triangle is parallel to the side that is below it, and it is actually half the length of that side. Okay, so if you can identify a midsegment, okay, like for example, DF is a midsegment because it's joining together these two midpoints. Okay, the side of the triangle that it's parallel to is kind of like the side underneath it. So AC is like directly underneath DF. So these two are parallel. Okay, and when they're parallel, there's a special relationship. So this side of the triangle, if you double the length of the midsegment, you will get that side of the triangle, which is pretty nifty. Or vice versa, to get the length of the midsegment, if you half the length of the triangle that is parallel to, you will get the length of the midsegment. Is your mind blown? Is it blown? I think it's blown. Okay, and same with all the sides. So like for example, if this was 5, okay, if you have to double the midsegment to get the length of the side of the triangle that's parallel to, what would the length of AC be? It would be 10. You guys are like Albert Einstein. You're so smart. And anyway, something else to know about that. Okay, which ignore that for a second. Okay, so the midsegment is actually congruent to these two congruent pieces of your triangle. So that's something that might be helpful when you're solving. So if you know the length of the midsegment, you know each of these are the same length as well, which 5 plus 5 does equal 10. Holy hot dog, right? Okay, now going back to this bullet point. So DE is right here. DE is parallel to the side underneath it on the triangle. So like if I go underneath this, it's congruent to that side, okay, which is BC. Okay, so DC is parallel to BC, okay, and that means that if you double DE, you will get BC, or vice versa. If you half BC, you'll get DE. And finally, our last midsegment is segment E to the F, okay, which EF, the side that's like underneath it, is side AB. So EF is parallel to BE. Okay, which I know there's a lot of symbols going on, but these two are parallel. And again, what that means, if you double EF, you'll get the length of AB. Or if you take AB and you half that bad boy, you'll get EF. Pretty cool, right? Now going back to this volcano / sinkhole problem that we were talking about. Okay, so this is a midsegment, which we know that because these two segments are 920 meters, which means they're congruent, which means that D is the midpoint. Okay, so it's connecting two midpoints, and we know that this is a midpoint because both of these are 700. Okay, so what side of the triangle is the midpoint BD parallel, or sorry, the midsegment BD parallel to? It is parallel to AE. So what would you do to 775 meters to get the length of AE, which is essentially the length of this volcano or sinkhole? You would double 775, okay? So you would double 775, and that would give you A to the E, okay? So pretty cool, right? So you can actually use midsegments to help you predict other measurements or use an indirect measurement, which that just means you're using a measurement that's not completely related to your actual measurement, but it will help you to calculate it. So that's pretty cool. Oh man, you guys, so that all was really neat. But I know that you guys are super pumped up to do our awesome example problems that apply these properties of midsegments that I've just told you about. So example 1, 2, and 3 will explain how you can solve just a regular triangle using these properties. So go ahead and you can actually end the video now because we're done. There's no more slides. But you can go ahead and end the video and watch examples 1, 2, and 3. And we're going to have a midsegment party, so get excited.